Hey guys, this is the Ogre from MattOgre.com and WeTheArm.com, and today what I want to do is talk about the 1911 pistol. Got here an old Springfield Armory 1911 GI model. Except for the grips, it is completely stock. However, some of the things that I've done to it is that I completely stripped it down, polished the internals, and lubricated it inside with Slipstream Sticks weapon lube. Let me show you what that is. Slipstream Sticks, you can get it from crusaderweaponry.com and also amazon.com. And when you're on amazon.com, also check out Uprising USA and Uprising UK by George Hill. That's me. So get my book. You can get Uprising USA as an Audible, and you want it. Get it. It's good. Uprising UK, though, I think is better, but it's not on Audible yet. Anyway, this 1911, it's packing 8-round mags, and I'm using the Winchester PDX-1 load because I think that is a fantastic load. And we've got the magazines. I believe these are the Kimber Pro mags. And the Kimber Pro mag is an outstanding magazine. It's polished inside and outside of the magazine body, and that makes the gun operate very smoothly. It makes for a very reliable magazine. Now, one thing I like about the simple 1911 GI model is that there's no frills to it. There's no any special features or tricks. It doesn't have the ramp rear sight, the Novak style, which I absolutely can't stand anymore. Put a little gold fingernail polish. My wife had some gold fingernail polish, so I put a little gold on the front sight post to make it a little bit more visible, to get it to help out, and it does a little bit. And the grips that are on it now are the Hogue. This is the old style Hogue palm swell grip panels. I just like those. I like those a lot. And I've kept this stock. You got your normal GI hammer spur and your normal GI beaver tail. Well, not really a beaver tail. This is just the grip safety. It's not a beaver tail grip safety. I'm thinking about changing these, but maybe with the Wilson Combat. One thing I like about the Wilson Combat grip safeties is that you can take those in and off without pulling off the mainspring housing. And on the Springfields, the mainspring housing is it's kind of a pain in the butt because there's a lot more pressure on it. So pulling that pin out is a lot more difficult. Well, let's talk about the 1911 design specifically in a little bit of detail. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm doing this live. I'm recording this all in one take, so this is all off the cuff, off the top of my head. So if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments, and if whatever you like. So what we've got here is a design that goes back to 1907 when the 1911 entered into a competition for the U.S. Army against the Savage 45 auto pistol and a Luger 45 auto pistol. The Luger dropped out before the competition really got rolling, and the Savage was just trounced, well, savagely. There was really no contest. The 1911 pistol, or we could call it the Browning design at that time, just walked away with it. And that contest, that program went from 1907 to 1911. And in 1911, this gun won, and the Savage auto pistol basically disappeared from the U.S. It disappeared, and nobody's. I mean, I've seen a couple pictures of it, but you really don't hear about that gun. This gun, though, has influenced so much. I mean, it's such a brilliant design. The ergonomics the simplicity and elegance of the mechanism. Now, a lot of guys will say that the 1911 is a complicated pistol, but you have to remember what the mechanisms were like back in that time. Back in 1907 through 1911, automatic pistols, and there were other automatic pistols even before this one that were good guns, but holy crap, they were complicated. The Luger was a very complicated mechanism with its toggle action. The Bernardini, Beauchart pistols, they were really cool looking, very elegant, but also very complicated. Elegance is a matter of style, not necessarily mechanical descriptions, but they were beautiful guns, but very complicated, as were most. The Mauser C96 predates this gun, and that's another beautiful, elegant pistol, but also a lot more complicated. The 1911, when you get into the individual components, the individual mechanisms that make things work, from the magazine release to the link tilting the barrel, to the safety, to the grip safety, the way the mainspring works, every little system is a very simple system. It's a simple mechanical device. And this weapon is a machine, and it's got several mechanical devices within this machine to make the overall machine function, and it does so very well. Now, the 1911 gets a lot of criticism because of misunderstandings. They say that the 1911 is unreliable. Well, the 1911, when it was designed, the barrel was 5 inches long, and it's become vogue to cut that barrel down. Now, it's funny how it used to be very well known for being reliable. It was a very reliable handgun. And then it became vogue to start cutting the barrel down in length, and all of a sudden it's now less reliable. Maybe that's a coincidence, or maybe we have a cause and effect thing going on here. Generally what I've seen, though, is that the 5-inch guns are the most reliable. And when you go down into the commander length of 4 1/4 or even 4 inches, they're still very, very reliable. However, when you go below 4 inches, that's when you start to really see the reliability drop off. And what's causing that, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's timing, maybe it's geometry, you know, with the tilting barrel. It's hard to say. But really the result is it's just less reliable. So I like 1911s to stay 4 inches and longer. 6-inch 1911s are reliable. I've seen some hunting 1911s with that long slide, very reliable and very accurate. And that accuracy is really the advantage of a 1911. Because of that single action trigger pull, you've got a mechanical safety, and when you drop that safety, you squeeze the grip, you've got a very short, crisp trigger pull. So this gun here, being the GI, you know, it's not a Trick Wilson Combat or what. So you've got a little bit of a take up, a little pressure, and then the hammer drops. And that's all the trigger does, is drop that hammer. With a Glock, the hammer is cocking the striker the last little bit, and then it releases. A lot of other guns, you know, that trigger is doing a lot more than just releasing the sear, like in a 1911. And that's one of the things that makes the 1911 really good. The other thing is that the ergonomics allows the 1911 to be pointed very instinctively, and that lets you have a first round hit on target from a draw. So from the buzzer to, you know, banging steel, very, very quick, very, very accurate. And that's why the 1911 is very popular with competition shooters. Most competition guns tend to be based off of the 1911 in some way, shape, or form. This little gun here, though, will never be a competition gun. You know, it just does not have the features that you want in a competition gun. But should I desire, I could build this into a competition gun and do very well with it, because the 1911 platform There's so many options for aftermarket that really make this an attractive gun for the home hobbyist, for the tinkerer, for the guy who loves guns for the sake of guns and likes the mechanics, likes the design, and wants to have a little fun with it. The 1911 is a gun that you can easily strip down to the bare bones, empty the frame of all small parts, all pins, all springs, and really tweak on all those internals, kind of like a Glock, except a little bit more complicated. Um, I'd probably suggest starting out with a Glock and tinker with that, and then study the 1911, or screw the Glock and just go straight to the 1911. Get it, study the mechanics, study the components, and really come to an understanding of how it works, and then break it down and have fun with it, and make it the gun you want it, that you want. It's easy to do. It just takes time, it takes patience, and it takes somebody who can. Let's see, Douglas Adams probably had the best advice about it. Don't panic. Think every step through, and if you get stuck, go back and review the literature, review how-to videos, and take it step by step, and you will be able to walk yourself through how to assemble and disassemble the 1911 completely with detail. So I really like the 1911. It's one of my favorites. I carried this. This was an issue gun for me, and well, not this gun. This one's just like it. But the 1911 was my service auto. I wasn't issued a Beretta ever. I take that back. I was issued a Beretta for maybe an hour total, where I had to turn in the 1911. I was issued a Beretta. A second lieutenant was complaining that he was stuck with an old 1911 and wanted the new Beretta. So I said, Lieutenant, let's go talk to the supply officer. You can use my Beretta, and I'll take my 1911 back. And we were able to make that trade. He was happy. I was happy. Everybody was happy. The supply sergeant was happy too, because we were out of his office and he didn't care, just as long as we were gone. But that 1911 pistol stayed with me. What's funny though is that the military never taught me. I never took a class about the 1911. They never gave me any training. They literally handed me the gun, handed me some magazines, and handed me a holster with the sage advice not to shoot myself in the foot with it. Now, I learned how to shoot the 1911 before I went into the service, and I learned from the father of a girlfriend who later became a fiance, and then we later broke up, but his name was Dave, and Dave taught me. He was a great guy. I like Dave. I like Dave actually a lot more than his daughter, even though his daughter had better tits. But Dave was a cool guy. Taught me everything about the 1911, in and out, how to strip it, how to shoot it, and that is what I took with me into the service when they said, here's your sidearm, don't shoot yourself in the foot with it. So thank you, Dave Wright. But this gun here, very reliable, very accurate, very easy to manipulate, and very smooth as far as 1911s go. The other thing about the 1911, the misgivings, if the gun's not too short, it's unreliable because, it's too tight. The tolerances and the way the guns are built, they're just too tight nowadays to be reliable, and that's baloney. The problem is that the gun is tight, and you take it to a class, and it gets dirty, it gets hot, and what little lubrication that you guys put into it was not enough, and so the gun's running hot, dirty, and dry, which means it's going to start to jam. Now, the rule of thumb is basically the same as with a AR-15. You want it, it can be hot, it can be dirty, but it's got to be wet. So just like that weekend in Vegas, uh, keep it wet to keep it happy. Uh, it's got to be well lubricated. Now this gun here, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can see. Can you see how you got a little bit of oil sweating out from underneath the slide? Just a little bit. You know, not enough to drip or anything, but it's just kind of like it's sweating a little oil. You know, that's what you want in a 1911. You want it like that because you want enough oil in there that it's going to lubricate that gun. When teaching classes in Utah, I had a lot of guys who had 1911s, and the guys that had no problems with the 1911s were the guys that kept the gun lubed. And when I say lubricated, I'm talking with good lubrication. Again, let's go back to some good lubrication. Slipstream sticks. Look it up. Slipstream Weapons Lube from Crusader Weaponry. Look for that little logo. Where's the logo? Right there. CrusaderWeaponry.com. CrusaderWeaponry.com or Amazon.com. Slipstream sticks. And it gets the name from the river Styx that you have to cross to go to hell and back. So hell and back reliability, you have to cross Styx. You have to use Slipstream sticks for hell and back reliability. And I'll put that up against Frog Lube. I'll put it up against Militech. I'll put it up against any other lubricant on the market. And I have in the past, and Slipstream sticks has won. You can store it. Frog Lube, it's going to get sticky if you store it with Frog Lube. A lot of people like Frog Lube, that's fine. You like to mess with your weapons a lot more than I do, hey, that's golden, that's fine. But Slipstream sticks, it's not going to burn out. So you go through a day, you're shooting 400 rounds through it, all your lubrication with other lubes, especially like Rem oil and, you know, your classic 3-in-1 oils. Those things are just going to burn out of the gun. You know, you don't have to use Slipstream sticks. I recommend it though, but you can use any full synthetic. That's going to give you good performance, good lubrication, and it's not going to burn out of the gun. Slipstream sticks though, if the carrier fluid does burn out of the gun, the actual Slipstream lubricant is still there because it's a two-part lubricating system. And the oil is just the carrier for the actual lubricant. So you can run Slipstream sticks in your 1911 through a whole class, and it's going to run great. Now, the other thing, you know, you don't have to keep it clean. This gun here, I cleaned for the first time in a long time where I actually took all the internals out. It was filthy, scary filthy, but it was still working and it was still slick because I'd used Slipstream in it in the past and it was still working. But now that I've cleaned it again just last night, oh man, that is so smooth. It's so nice. And the trigger, the mechanism, everything in there, just beautiful. Just beautiful. Thanks to a good cleaning and a good coating of Slipstream sticks all over all the internals. Working great. And this gun here is one of the few 1911s that I'm going to trust. I'm going to throw out some brands here for you. Sig Sauer, of course Springfield Armory, and I'm going to say Dan Wesson for production 1911s. Now, we're not talking about guys like Wilson Combat, STI, and who else is out there? Nighthawk. Those guns are really more custom guns. They're not production guns, you know, like Paras, Smith & Wessons, and the like. Those 1911s that are semi-custom or even full custom. Nighthawk has one gunsmith builds the gun from start to finish. It's not an assembly process. It's a hand fit and finish process on all of those guns. But for production 1911s, my number one choice is going to be Springfield Armory, followed by Sig Sauer, and then Dan Wesson. Now, the prices on the Dan Wessons are going up, but they're still a production 1911. They're still really good. Now, the new Paras, the Para USA guns, I have to say those are coming up very high. I'm really digging the Para USA 1911s now, and that's not something I would have said 5 years ago. I used to really not be a fan of the Paras, but they're getting really good now. So I wouldn't hesitate to buy one. The Smith and Wesson 1911s. They started out really good. They kind of lost their quality control. I think it's coming back. But before you take a Smith and Wesson 1911 home, give it a really good, thorough once over. If you're looking at one in the store, you say, yeah, I want to buy this one, and then the guy at the gun counter grabs you a different one and brings it out for you. Take a look at the one that he's bringing out for you, the one that you're actually transferring. Take a look at it, feel the trigger, feel the slide, feel the action. You shouldn't feel any binding in it, and it should feel fairly smooth out of the box. But that's, it's kind of like what's spicy to you might be not spicy to me, so what's smooth to you might not be smooth to me. But feel it, get a good vibe for what you're buying. The 1911, if you use the right ammunition, if you keep it lubricated, the gun is going to run, it's going to be dependable, and it's going to last a lifetime. So those are some myths we can dispel. What else is out there? Magazines. You got to use a really good magazine. Magazines can be kind of a sensitive item in a 1911. For example, I've got one great magazine. Came with a Smith & Wesson 1911 of mine. The magazine's actually made by Novak. Well, as great as that magazine was, I put it into this 1911, and in this 1911, I slapped that magazine home, and because of the way the floor plate is on that magazine, doesn't allow it to fully seat and lock into place. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Make sure those magazines work well in your gun. I really like the Kimber Pro mags, not the regular Kimber 1911 mags. Those actually suck. But the Kimber Pro mags, and with the Pro mags, you got two different size bumper pads that you can put on there. You can select between them. They're really, really good. Actually, is this a Pro mag? Yeah, that's a Pro mag. But no, that's not a Pro mag. It doesn't have the two screws. Never mind. This is I think a Wilson. Anyway, not important. But the Kimber Pro mags are really good, and they've got a cheap price. The Wilson Combat magazines, of course, are probably the best in the industry. So if you want to get a Wilson Combat, make sure it's running in your gun, and then buy more Wilson Combat mags. There's some others out there. I do like the Novaks, but the one for the Smith & Wesson 1911 is not quite working on my Springfield, but it's neither here nor there. I've got another one that does. But get good quality magazines. And if you're spending about $30 for the magazine, that's about right. If you get some 1911 mags from the gun show, and they're like $10 a piece, well, you're getting what you pay for. You want a smooth follower, and you want a smooth magazine body inside the magazine. The outside's not important; it's the inside, because it's got to function good. You want one that's got replaceable springs, and that's the other thing with the 1911 to keep it reliable. I like to change the springs every 2,000 rounds. I like to go with a plus power spring from Wolf. Wolf gun springs are my boys, and that's what I put in all of my guns. And I put in, some plus power, maybe 5 pounds over factory. Forget shock buffers, forget recoil buffers, none of that crap. You want a good quality spring, good quality magazines, and good quality ammunition. When I say ammunition, make sure the ammunition is reliable in your gun, and if it's cycling, fine, then good. If I had one gun, it was a Springfield a long time ago, but it wouldn't even chamber 230 grain hollow points, and that was kind of a non-starter for me, so I had to get rid of that gun and get a different one. But I did know for a fact that it worked great with the 185 grain hollow points, and even though I was shooting those more often back then, I tended to prefer those lighter bullets, but I wanted the ability to shoot heavy ones as well, because I wanted to be able to shoot everything, in case I couldn't find any 185s. Anyway, let's talk about that. Bullet weights. The 1911 was designed to use 200 grain bullets, and the U.S. Army then specify 230 grain bullets. And with modern hollow point designs, that's another thing that's maybe caused some ammunition stoppages, reliability issues based on an improper bullet configuration for the gun. But generally speaking, a 230 grain bullet is the standard, and that's going to give you the best reliability. Anytime, especially with the smaller guns, when you go into lighter weight bullets, you might not have enough oomph to cycle the load, to cycle the action, and you're going to get stoppages. Maybe not after 50 rounds, but maybe after 150, you're going to start seeing stoppages as the gun gets a little hot, a little dirty. And if it's not properly lubed, it's going to slow down, and you're going to get some stoppages. So you want it to be reliable with the heavier loads. I favor the heavier loads. Reason being, you got more back pressure, you got a little bit more recoil on them, unless you're talking about some real hot plus P loads from Corbon, which then you're getting some real snappy recoil, and depending on what you're going for, I don't know if that's what's needed with a 45 auto. But I tend to prefer the heavier for caliber loads. If there was a 240 or 250 45 auto load, I'd be all over that. But the 230s, that's kind of my general preference. That's what I use. You want to make sure that it's reliable in your gun, and keep that thing wet, keep it lubed, use a full synthetic oil such as Slipstream, and your 1911 is going to be perfectly reliable. So there's a lot of haters out there on the 1911 because it's an old design, but you know what? It's a classic design. It's kind of like a curvy girl with nice sweater puppies. That never goes out of style. That might not be what's in vogue according to the fashion trends. Fashion trends wants skinny little girls with gigantic thigh gap. That's what's popular. But that doesn't work for me. I like that. I like that full figure. I like that. I like the curves. And the 1911 is like that. It's a classic. It's never going to go out of style. It's going to be beautiful. So, anyway, that's my thoughts on the 1911. Feel free to give me your thoughts in the comments, and peace out.